So rescheduling has stalled since President Trump took office. Nothing seems to be happening, but this may not be a bad thing because was rescheduling ever really the answer to begin with? Lots of people think no, because while there may be benefits to rescheduling, it may actually make things worse.
Hey, the Drug Enforcement Administration, the DEA, plans to hold a hearing on reclassifying marijuana. This is a federal level issue we're talking about here, right? So the proposal wouldn't actually legalize marijuana, but what it would do is reclassify it from a Schedule A drug, or Schedule 1 drug rather, like cocaine, to a Schedule 3 drug. And those can be lawfully prescribed as medication. It's kind of like Tylenol with codeine, right? The move would make it easier to access marijuana for medical reasons. If the DEA changes the drug schedule to a Category 3, it will still not be allowed in the states where marijuana is banned.
Now you guys remember when rescheduling and reclassification was first proposed under the Biden administration. A lot of people thought, hey, that's a good thing. Let's reschedule it and let's get it off of Schedule 1. But when a lot of people had a little bit more time to think about it, research and understand the facts behind that change, a lot of people were actually opposed to it and decided it's probably better to deschedule rather than reschedule. And we'll get into that in a bit. But it seems that as of right now, the rescheduling process is actually stalled 6 months into President Trump's administration. And that has some people feeling like government is just dangling that carrot of legalization in front of your face.
Here is us, and here is marijuana rescheduling. And once again, they have pulled that carrot away. The hearing to determine whether marijuana should be moved from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 has again been postponed, may be canceled. This is breaking news. I just read about this in Forbes and marijuanamoment.net, and I'm going to be citing them. I've got it all actually printed out here on a piece of paper.
So at this point, it feels like we've been hearing about rescheduling forever, but nothing's actually happened. And again, that may not be a bad thing, and we're going to discuss why. But as of right now, it's all down to the DEA, and they've again notified an agency judge that the rescheduling process remains stalled. It's been 6 months since the DEA Administrative Law Judge, Judge Mulrooney, temporarily paused hearings on a proposal to move the good herb from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3. And that move was initiated under the Biden administration. Now, when the news of rescheduling first broke, a lot of people were on board. Even Senator Wyden was on board. Check it out.
U.S. Senator Ron Wyden, along with 6 other senators, are pushing for the rescheduling of marijuana. NBC5 News previously reported that the Drug Enforcement Administration put forth a proposal to take marijuana from a Schedule 1 drug to Schedule 3. Today, senators sent a letter to U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland and the head of the DEA expressing support for the proposal. Health and Human Services conducted a 2-part inquiry to consider the current accepted medical use of marijuana and concluded it has been accepted to treat pain, anorexia, nausea, vomiting, among other ailments, without posing unacceptably high safety risks.
So that's the point that we've gotten to currently. A lot of people have recognized the benefits of the good herb. It's used for tons of different medical conditions, but it's still classed as a Schedule 1 drug, which basically means that there's no medical benefit and there's a high potential for abuse. But that does not reflect the reality. A lot of people actually get medical benefits from this plant. Now, something that they cite quite often is that if it's rescheduled, there'll be a lot more research into the plant. And that sentiment is mirrored in this article, which says Schedule 1 status traps researchers in a paradox. And that's down to the fact that because it's still federally illegal and classed as a Schedule 1 drug, there's a limited amount of people that can actually study it, and there's a limited amount of research that can actually be done into the drug legally on a federal level. But a lot of people actually push back and say that it's legal in so many states, and a lot of research has already been done into the plant. So it's time to just legalize it. Don't reschedule, just legalize. Now, there are some people who show concern and say that there's a lack of progress and things have slowed down under the Trump administration. And these folks are really calling for rescheduling to be completed and for it to be moved from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3. But on the flip side, there are a lot of people who say that rescheduling is not the answer, and that will actually make things worse.
The president actually asked the Secretary of HHS and also the Attorney General to initiate the administrative process to review how marijuana is scheduled.
Bureaucrats want to reschedule cannabis, but that doesn't go far enough. Moving cannabis to Schedule 3 would allow for much needed research and let existing businesses take advantage of significant tax deductions. However, rescheduling cannabis means it's still federally illegal, except for FDA-approved prescription-only products. It also wouldn't solve the industry's banking problem. Keeping cannabis federally illegal means banks are still unwilling to provide services to state-licensed businesses. Schedule III drugs are defined as those with moderate to low potential for dependence, like ketamine, anabolic steroids, or Tylenol with codeine. Cannabis doesn't belong in that category. If politicians really want to end the drug war, deschedule cannabis entirely and grant it the same legal status as alcohol and tobacco. Otherwise, this is just a mids move by boof bureaucrats.
That's exactly what it is. It's a mids move by boof bureaucrats. And I can't put it any better, because that's basically what it comes down to. Once you get past the fact that, oh, it's no longer going to be a Schedule 1 drug and all that, you realize Schedule 3 may actually be worse. If that's the case, just leave everything illegal. And that's reflected really clearly in the comments of these videos, especially this one by Bruce Newhouse, who says keeping the good herb a scheduled drug at all only helps pharmaceutical companies and still allows people to be incarcerated for its possession. Even having a Schedule 3 drug outside of its labeled container is a crime. So at this point, we gotta ask ourselves, is Schedule 3 really what we want anyway? Because personally, it seems to me that Schedule 3 may not be the answer. Now, I want to show you guys why rescheduling may not be a good thing and what will happen in places that have already legalized. How is that going to affect them? But before we do, just a quick reminder, if you're getting value from this video, please do like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to support us further, join the ICANN VIP Bean Club or just buy us a cup of coffee. And if you happen to be a home gardener, try the ICANN Organics, grab the bundle, use the code LEGAL. That works on the bundle and the beans.
I'm Maggie Bryan. If you're a cannabis consumer, you may have heard the news about a push to reschedule marijuana as a lower risk drug. But what does this mean for your next trip to the dispensary? Well, we spoke with a local medical marijuana shop about the financial impacts this could have on their business and their customers.
How are you?
Good. Business as usual here at Pure Medical in Colorado Springs. It's a medicinal marijuana dispensary.
Will you break this for me? Yep.
But the inside operations of a cannabis business look a lot different than other industries.
For the last 14 years we've been in business, we've had an effective tax rate of close to 70%.
The general manager here says certain tax laws that apply to them leave them high and dry, making it hard to turn a profit. A section of the IRS's tax code says businesses selling Schedule 1 and 2 substances like marijuana cannot deduct normal business expenses.
For instance, the wages and compensation packages we pay employees, their benefits, the rent on storefronts such as this,
resulting in a higher tax rate of around 70% for dispensaries compared to about a 20% tax rate for ordinary businesses.
So you guys can already see how difficult it is to run a business in this industry, especially considering the fact that it's federally still not legal, but also the fact that banks do not like to do any business with people in this industry. Now, there are politicians on both sides of the aisle that support rescheduling, and I'll show you what Republican Nancy Mace has to say about it in a bit, but first, let's hear what this guy has to say, because he thinks clearly that rescheduling is absolutely the wrong move.
Shifting weed from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 is the wrong move. It will do absolutely nothing to legalize weed or get the tens of thousands of people incarcerated for cannabis-related offenses out of jail. All it does is change its status from a drug with, quote, no currently accepted medical use and a high potential for abuse to one with, quote, moderate to low potential for physical and psychological dependence. It puts cannabis in the same category as things like ketamine and anabolic steroids, but it doesn't move it out of the Controlled Substances Act, which means that it will still be illegal to possess under federal law. One thing Schedule 3 will do, though, is place fewer restrictions on scientists who want to study the plant, something they've had to jump through government hurdles to be able to do under Schedule 1. It would also theoretically allow cannabis to be available by prescription, but since there's no federal medical cannabis program, the more likely scenario in my mind is that pharmaceutical companies see this, jump on the weed wagon, and charge you out the ass for drugs they make and doctors prescribe. At the end of the day, rescheduling cannabis from 1 to 3 would be the biggest move the federal government has ever made concerning the plan. But the fact remains that there are tens of thousands of individuals, mostly people of color, who are incarcerated for cannabis-related offenses, and this move won't help keep anyone out. Descheduling it and decriminalizing it altogether is the only solution to that end.
So rescheduling could potentially be the biggest move that the government has ever made, but is it the right move? And that right there is the problem. A lot of people think it's not the right move. But Nancy Mace, Republican, let's hear what she has to say.
I don't see rescheduling as being an issue, whether it's Joe Biden or Donald Trump as president. It seems like both presidents support a rescheduling to Schedule 3 would presumably be the answer. I can't speak for him, but I haven't spoken specifically with with him. I just know in previous public comments that he's made, it sounded like medical was something that he supported, which is by and far better than anybody else has done, Republican or Democrat, because they've done nothing.
And that right there is a good point, guys, because no matter which politicians you support, the Democrats or the Republicans, they've done nothing to legalize weed. Look at where we are right now. We're still talking about rescheduling, and we don't even know if rescheduling is really the most appropriate solution. Again, a lot of people think it's clearly not.
What the people support is decriminalization and legalization. And the only thing that the Biden administration has delivered thus far, let's just say it's been short of those promises. And so even with its administration considering to reschedule cannabis, that's still short of those promises. If we coordinate together and send a unified message and say that marijuana must be descheduled, it must be decriminalized, we should be advancing a comprehensive strategy at the federal level that doesn't celebrate Nixon, but acknowledges that harm and addresses that harm, we'd be in a much better position.
And for the first time in months, first time in years, I think we've seen now that the numbers are plus or higher, 70% plus in polls discussing, making adult use cannabis legal. So I just don't get who's not listening to the same polls that they claim are so important when it comes to other issues.
Clearly, Americans are overwhelmingly in support of legalization. The polls show it, the people said it, it's out there. Now I want to show you guys a clip that breaks down how rescheduling can impact states that have already legalized, such as Colorado and California. But before we do, have a look at this, because this is a really interesting point of view as to how rescheduling can actually cause more confusion when it comes to addictive drugs. Check it out.
The United States Drug Enforcement Agency, the DEA, proposed a reclassification of marijuana from a Schedule I drug to a Schedule III drug. This would move marijuana from being in the same category as heroin and LSD, which are highly addictive, to the likes of Tylenol and anabolic steroids. Cannabis grower Nevada Ellison says this proposed change would be more beneficial for first-time users and youth, because he says it's less likely to lead to the experimentation of other highly addictive drugs.
When you misclassify something and you go into your college age and you think it's classified with meth and heroin and opioids and all these things, and then they try it and they say, oh, that's what coke is like, that's what meth is like, that's what heroin is like, and it's the misclassification, I think, is the biggest gateway drug.
Ellison is also urging everyone, regardless of their position on marijuana legalization, to do research before Election Day.
So research is really important, and despite the fact that he compared the good herb to Schedule I drugs, personally I don't think it should be compared to Schedule I, Schedule II, or Schedule III drugs. All that does is cause confusion for a lot of people. Now let's have a look at how rescheduling can impact legal states such as California and Colorado.
Months, it is likely marijuana will be rescheduled, and on a federal level, it'll no longer be classified with heroin and LSD.
This would mean massive changes to the pot industry, and it could save legal businesses millions of dollars here. Matt Morrow joining us now to explain. Matt.
Erica, right now the plan to reschedule marijuana is in a public comment and administrative phase. In a few months, the DEA will make a final decision, and if it reclassifies marijuana, it could mean huge savings in the form of tax write-offs. Think about it like this. Most businesses can write off a lot of expenses on their taxes. This can save them large amounts of money, but because marijuana is a Schedule I drug, businesses cannot legally bank or write off expenses on the federal level. Colorado and some other states have changed state tax laws, but Governor Jared Polis, who talked about this with Maryland's governor today, says more needs to be done.
Of course, federal taxes are much higher than state taxes, so that didn't have nearly as much of an effect on removing this onerous tax burden that often can lead to rates of 60–70%.
The governor said the extra money could be a boost for state and local economies as well, as marijuana businesses could put that money back into their companies and their employees.
So one thing is clear, rescheduling and legalization, those things are really tied up in politics. And if we want to see any meaningful change, it'll obviously have to have bipartisan support, but we need those people in power to actually take steps to make things happen. Because under the Biden administration, nothing happened, and under the Trump administration, things seem to have stalled. Again, it's all tied up in politics, and this discussion actually breaks it down clearly. Have a listen.
Yeah. It almost seems to save face. They're just going to blame the Biden administration, blame the DEA under Biden.
And they should.
And which is warranted, completely warranted now.
I still don't understand how this didn't get done. As much as there are so many things that I feel like I do have a grasp on,
yeah,
I would have never thought that with the president and the attorney general on board with OLC and HHS, it's like, holy, I mean, come on, man. What do we have to get here to get this done? You know, even I'm in the boat of all the people asking that.
Well, there's so many things we talk about how there's more important things with this administration other than cannabis. But when this gets brought up, this has become a very political play. When you have that many Americans that want rescheduling and full-on legalization, the approval rating across the country is significant in this day and age. This has become so political to the point where, like you said, this isn't a putt, this is a tap-in. And there's only one thing that comes to play. It's just like, it's not common sense anymore. It's become a very political play. And stories like revealed today, I view it as a good thing. You know, for the industry as a whole. It's great that we learned this information. And more importantly, I think it's actually good that the Trump administration will learn this stuff.
So there are a lot of different views that people have on this particular issue, but I want to find out what you guys think. Drop it in the comments down below and let me know where you guys stand when it comes to rescheduling. Do you guys think that we should reschedule it to Schedule 3? Do you guys think we should deschedule it and decriminalize it? Or do you guys think we should just leave everything as it is and not make any changes at all? Drop it in the comments and let me know. Now, earlier in this video, we spoke about taxes and states' revenue, and that's something that we actually covered in a recent video because there was one state that banned the good herb and lost millions of dollars because of that move. If you haven't checked it out, have a look because it's coming up right now.